14 current or former law enforcement officers, 6 co-conspirators who are alleged to have sold out the public.
America, we just witnessed the largest law enforcement corruption scandal in Mississippi history. 20 current and former police officers, including 2 sitting sheriffs, were arrested by the FBI for taking bribes for what they thought were Mexican cartel members to provide safe passage for massive drug shipments. But here's the shocking part. These corrupt cops were escorting what they believed were 25 kilograms of coca through Mississippi communities while collecting taxpayer-funded salaries to supposedly protect those same communities.
2 county sheriffs and 12 other law enforcement officers in Mississippi have been indicted in connection with a years-long conspiracy to traffic drugs.
What is up, guys? Tyson De La Cruz here. Thank you so much for rocking with me. This story perfectly exposes how corruption at the highest levels of law enforcement creates a pipeline for cartels to poison American communities, while the very people sworn to protect us sell us out for cash. Let me break down what the FBI uncovered in a years-long investigation. We're talking about systematic corruption networks that involved 14 current and former law enforcement officers and 6 co-conspirators across multiple counties in the Mississippi Delta region.
Prosecutors say the investigation started after drug dealers who were arrested complained about members of law enforcement taking bribes. Those bribes ranged between $20,000 to hundreds of thousands of dollars.
This investigation started when actual drug dealers who got arrested started complaining that they had paid bribes to law enforcement officers. Think about that for a second. Criminals were so used to paying off cops that they complained when they got arrested by honest cops who wouldn't take their money. The bribes ranged from $1,500 to over $30,000 per escort, with some officers receiving hundreds of thousands of dollars over the course of the conspiracy. These weren't just small-time payoffs. This was systematic corruption that turned law enforcement into a protection service for drug traffickers.
Clay Joyner announcing the indictment of 14 Mississippi law enforcement officers and 6 others. 2 of those indicted sitting sheriffs Milton Gaston of Washington County and Bruce Williams of Humphreys County. All defendants facing federal drug and gun charges.
2 sitting sheriffs, you guys. These weren't just patrol officers looking to make some extra cash. These were top law enforcement officers in their counties, the people responsible for setting the tone and maintaining the integrity of their departments. Here's how this corruption scheme actually worked. FBI agents posed as Mexican cartel members and approached these officers with offers to pay them for providing police escorts for drug shipments. And these corrupt cops eagerly agreed to betray their oath and their communities for cartel cash.
Multiple law enforcement officials in the Mississippi Delta found themselves on the wrong side of the law. This after the FBI arrested them in connection with a Mississippi Delta drug conspiracy takedown. 20 people were arrested in all, including the chief deputy of the Sunflower County Sheriff's Department, Marvin Flowers.
The officers provided armed escorts for what they believed were massive drug shipments, sometimes 25 kilos of coca, traveling through Highway 61 corridor into Memphis. They used their official police vehicles, their official police badges, and their authority to protect what they thought were cartel operations. According to the indictment, Washington County Sheriff Milton Gaston received multiple monetary payments for his blessings for the cartel to operate in his county and used his deputies to protect the cartel's illegal drug trafficking. He even tried to disguise these payments as quote-unquote campaign contributions, but didn't report them as required by law. Humphreys County Sheriff Bruce Williams gave him the blessing for the undercover FBI agents to transport drugs and drug proceeds through his county. He even gave permission for the cartel to use the chief deputy, True Ron Grayson, to escort the narcotic shipments. The level of betrayal here is absolutely staggering. These officers weren't just taking money. They were actively participating in what they believed was a major drug trafficking operation that would flood their own communities with poison.
So prosecutors accuse the officers of providing escort services to drug traffickers in exchange for bribes. So joining us live now is Anna Schechter, head of our crime and policing policing unit. So Anna, let's talk about this. How is law enforcement handling this? How are they tipped off about this alleged scheme?
The FBI investigation revealed that these officers understood they were protecting the transportation of 25 kilos of coca. That is 55 pounds of pure poison that they thought was going to destroy communities across the region. And they were willing to provide armed protection in exchange for cash. Some of these corrupt officers were even armed during these escort runs, driving official police vehicles while protecting what they believe were cartel drug shipments. They turned their badges and their authority into tools for criminal enterprises.
Well, they were essentially saying, okay, on the down low, they were armed and they would drive, sometimes even in their police cruisers, other times in other vehicles, essentially operating as protection for this transport.
Acting U.S. Attorney Clay Joyner said it perfectly. These defendants sold out the public, promoted crimes that should have been investigated and stopped, and instead of working to stem the flow of dangerous controlled substances, the evidence will show they took bribes to facilitate the distribution of controlled substances. What makes this case even more disturbing that it's part of a broader pattern of corruption in Mississippi law enforcement. This isn't an isolated incident. It is a system of systematic problems that have been festering for years.
I also want to remind our viewers that in recent years, Mississippi law enforcement, sheriffs, deputies, officers have been accused of a number of just a lot of bad behavior. One involving inside a corrections office with an inmate, other schemes.
The FBI is taking a very close look at the Mississippi Delta region because drug running in that area is significant. And what they found was that it was actually the sheriffs and the deputies who were helping facilitate drug trafficking instead of stopping it. The charges these officers face are serious. Most are charged with violations that carry up to life in prison and fines up to, get this, $10 million. But here's what really gets me. While these corrupt officers were taking bribes to protect drug shipments, honest law enforcement officers in other parts of the country were risking their lives to take down criminal organizations. The contrast here couldn't be more stark. Let's talk about who really gets hurt by the corruption, the communities these officers were supposed to protect. The Mississippi Delta region has been plagued by drug trafficking, and now we know that some of the very people that are supposed to stop it were actually facilitating it.
I think you could probably characterize it as a sting, but again, the original complaints that began the investigation were from drug dealers.
The FBI had to carry 25 kilograms of fake cocaine in briefcases to test whether or not these officers would really provide protection for what they thought were cartel shipments. And guess what? They did. They eagerly took the money and provided escorts and betrayed their oath to their communities. America, this Mississippi corruption scandal perfectly illustrates why we can't assume that having a badge makes someone trustworthy. 20 arrests, many of them law enforcement officers, including 2 sheriffs, were willing to sell out their communities to what they thought were Mexican cartel members for cash. These weren't just bad apples. This was systematic corruption that turned law enforcement into a protection service for drug traffickers. Officers who were supposed to be stopping the flow of drugs into American communities were instead providing armed escorts for massive cocaine shipments. The good news is the FBI investigation shows that federal law enforcement is serious about rooting out corruption wherever they can find it. When local law enforcement becomes part of the problem, federal agents step in and hold them accountable. But this case also shows why we need serious vetting and oversight in law enforcement officers. If criminals expect to pay bribes to cops, how long has this corruption been going on? The residents of Humphrey County and the entire Mississippi Delta region deserve better than sheriffs and deputies who sold them out for drug cartels. They deserve law enforcement officers who would protect their communities, not profit from their destruction. Let me know what you think about this. Drop it down in the comment section down below. Smash the like button if you kindly would. Share, subscribe, and as always, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.